This is the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama. Thank you for joining me for this episode. My guest this week is Saskia, and she runs the Etsy shop Natural Born Customs. But before we get into that, I want to share some information that was shared with me based on episode 164. If you've listened to episode 164, it was my conversation with Ina of If Only Pretty. And we talked about a couple of things. We talked about shipping, supplies and packing materials, and Facebook ads. And I just want to say thank you to a couple of people who wrote in to share resources that they use. I think I had asked for resources, and thank you so much to the people who wrote in. So I'm going to share with you what they shared with me so that if you're listening and you're still struggling to find good resources for packing and shipping and also Facebook ads, here's where you can go. So first of all, Jules from the Etsy shop Fate and Coincidence. Thank you, Jules, for sharing this information. So she says that the best place to get packing and shipping supplies and materials is Uline, uline.com. That's spelled ULIN like Nancy, E like Edward, .com. She says they have really awesome prices. You can buy stuff in bulk and everything comes within 1 to 3 days. And I believe that's because if you're in the US, they have warehouses not just on all the coasts, but in the middle of the country as well. So they're able to get stuff out quickly. And she sells jewelry, and she says she buys all her jewelry boxes there. So it sounds like they have a wide variety. I've actually bought from Uline before, and they are really good. But I didn't know they had jewelry boxes. She says they also have a big catalog with a wide variety of stuff. And for bubble mailers, she gets hers at Sam's Club. And then maybe Costco might have those. Regarding Uline, I just want to mention that if you're not in the US, you can still shop on Uline. They do have a Canadian website and which is uline.ca, and then one for South and Central America, which is uline.mx. And the nice thing about those sites is they are, if you don't speak English, you can actually look at the sites in French for the .ca and in Spanish for any Spanish-speaking countries. So that's a good one for international buyers as well. Thank you to Jules for sharing that. The other one I had was from Joe Leo. Joe runs the Etsy shop, The Coastal Workshop, and I've had him on the podcast before. Joe is a bastion of great information. So he also says shipping supplies, 2 great sources that he uses. One is uline.com again. The other one is fetpack.com, and that's spelled F like Frank, E like Edward, T like Tom, P like Paul, A like Apple, C like Cat, K like Kite.com. And so those are the 2 that he recommends. Then Joe also talked about tracking Facebook ads. That was something we talked about. I don't know a lot about Facebook ads, but he's used it and he says it's working really well for him. And so I'm just going to read to you how he says he tracks his Facebook ads. If you need to take notes on this, I'm going to go a little bit slowly. So in order to effectively track Facebook ads, Joe said that you need to code your ads. And so what he does is he sets up coupon codes in Etsy and uses names like Facebook 2, Facebook 5, Facebook 10, etc. And then he uses those codes in his Facebook ad. So something like the Facebook 2 coupon code is $2 off any purchase of $20 or more. Facebook 5 would be $5 off any purchase of $50 or more. Facebook 10 would be $10 off any purchase of $100 or more. And then you track the coupons that actually get redeemed. And one of the notes he said is he's found that using a dollar amount off rather than a percentage off is a lot more effective because, and this makes sense, people can relate to saving an actual dollar amount, or if not dollars, whatever currency you use, rather than calculating a percentage in their head. So that's Joe's tip. Thank you so much, Joe. And thank you, Jules. And on with this week's episode.
Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Saskia, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and welcome. Thank you for being my guest.
Thank you very much for having me, Ijama.
You're so welcome. And I love that you have, a story behind your Etsy journey, and I'm looking forward to you sharing that. But before we get into that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name is Saskia, and I have a brand called Natural Born Customs. I started it when I was living in South Africa. I lived there for 12 years. I've just moved back to the UK, and I am an artist and customizer, and I take ordinary, everyday things and give them Technicolor personalities.
I like that, Technicolor personalities. How did you start customizing now specifically, what do you customize before we get into that?
Primarily what I have on my Etsy store is Converse high top sneakers.
Mm-hmm.
But I customize everything. I customize tables, jackets, bags, spaceships, whatever you have, I can customize it.
Okay.
Anything. Yeah.
And so how did you get into that?
I think I've all my life had this weird fear of blending in.
Mm.
I always needed to sort of look different and be different. I don't know where it came from. So I always customized my own clothes, and I started customizing my sneakers, and a lot of people would be like, I've never seen that before. Where'd you get it? And I suddenly was thinking, wow, people actually like what I'm doing. So I started doing it more, and then started doing it for friends, and then it went from there, really.
Oh, cool. Now, you originally opened your Etsy shop in 2013. How did you first discover Etsy?
Because I love all things individual, when I think a friend told me originally about Etsy, it was my idea of heaven, because I don't like the same old stuff. So suddenly there's this incredible marketplace where you can buy one-off handmade items. I mean, it's, for people that love one of a kind and just things with a human touch.
Yeah.
It was just the best thing in the world I could imagine. So yeah, I wanted to get involved.
Oh, cool. All right. So you open your shop in 2013, and then something happens and you couldn't quite focus on Etsy.
Yes. So I basically I opened the shop, I started to get things into order, and then I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So suddenly everything else obviously fell to the wayside, and I went in automatic pilot of that journey, the cancer journey, which, all in all is pretty much a good year or two. And it's annoying now because I'm over that nightmare, got through it, gone back to continue with my Etsy shop. But it says that, I opened in 2013 and I've got no sales, and it looks like, for 3 years, nobody's been interested in buying anything. But in actual fact, it's like, that's when I opened it, but I haven't been near it since. So that's a bit awkward.
Yeah. So actually that is a bone of contention for not just you, but I know a lot of other Etsy sellers, because sometimes things do happen where you open your shop or you open your Etsy account, and then, it has on Etsy since whatever year, and then it looks like your shop has been languishing, whereas in reality it hasn't. And I know I've had this discussion before, and we've talked to, I know it came up during the Etsy Up conference, which Etsy hosted in August of 2016. And someone did ask that question and said, why can we not change the date that our shop was opened if we'd been on Etsy as a buyer before? And so it's showing that I've been on Etsy for all this time, but I just opened up my shop. So it has kind of a negative look for buyers.
Completely.
Because then they're concerned as to why nobody has been buying from you over all those years. But the long and short of that conversation was they don't really have any plans right now to change that, how that particular section populates. I think it's just not really a priority. So, well,
it's worth maybe me getting in contact with them. Actually, I've never thought of it, but perhaps explaining the situation, because it is a very big disadvantage for me.
Mm-hmm. And I think one good thing about Etsy is, I think if enough people bring the same thing up and talk about it being an issue or a concern, they will start to listen and act on that and respond to that. So I don't think it would hurt to mention it. And if enough people have that, because I had the same thing too. I think I opened my shop in one of my shops, I think I opened it right before Christmas, and it was just such a busy time. It was the worst time to open a shop, because I should say I set it up, but then I didn't actually start selling till March or April of the following year. But then it said, and I think it was 2014, but then it said open since 2014. But when I actually started selling, I really wanted it to say the year that I started. And anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think speaking up, especially in the Etsy community, can have an impact. So I would encourage that. And for anyone else who is bothered by that, I would encourage you to speak up about it.
Mm.
Okay. So when you I shouldn't say originally, but when you came back to Etsy, was your outlook on running an Etsy shop and having a creative business changed from when you first opened it to when you were able to come back to face it?
Well, I think when you go through an experience like cancer, I mean, you transform, and you're not the same person that you were before. So I came to Etsy obviously with this whole new person that I was and this whole new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually a really beautiful transformation. You become very much more of a grateful person and appreciate a lot more around you. And I think it's my whole attitude towards just selling the things that I love to make.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't so much it's not so much for me now about starting a business.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds very peace and love, but it's more to me that I make these things with so much love, and to be able to sort of give somebody something that will make them Technicolor and just, make them stand out from a crowd, that makes me feel wonderful to be able to do something like that.
Yeah. And then I'm sure there's just the what's the word? I can't think of the word. When someone whom you don't know actually does purchase from you. You said you have no sales, but you actually do have sales. Do you remember when you got that first sale? How soon after getting back onto Etsy and putting up your designs did that sale come in?
Well, actually, the first sale I ever got, I've had 2 sales, and the first sale I ever had was just when I was starting in 2013. Or I'm not very good on time and years and when.
Mm-hmm.
Then I just got a second sale about just before Christmas when I started again on Etsy. Mother wanted a pair of my Pac-Man shoes for her little boy. They're actually adult shoes, but I made them obviously because I do custom orders. So I made little mini Pac-Man shoes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then just to be clear, so you're not painting these on, you're stitching the designs onto the shoes or whatever item it is that someone wants customized.
Yes. That's very important because to me, it's been done, painting, airbrushing. What hasn't been done is the fact that I do hand stitch customizations. I sometimes incorporate paint. I like to use any mediums I can get my hands on. But it is primarily embroidery and handwork.
Okay, yeah. And that I think takes a longer time just because one, it can be that easy to stitch. Well, if I'm saying like with like the Converse sneakers, because of the material that those are made of. How did you learn how to do this? Are you self-taught?
Yeah, I needed to funk my own Converse up. So I don't know what made me try thread one day, but I tried it and then I never looked back. And now, I mean, I've got my own personal Converse. I've got trinkets hanging off them and trims and lace. And I mean, I've gone all out. I'll try chains, anything I can get my hands on.
Yeah. Now, if someone sees you in public and sees your shoes and wants you to do something similar for them, do you direct them to your Etsy shop to handle the transaction, or do you do off Etsy sales as well?
I do off Etsy sales as well. I love the human part, the connection of coming together, and because a lot of people want a customized pair of sneakers, but they don't quite know what they want on there. And I love that part where I'm like, okay, so what music do you like? And, you know, what little sayings or isms do you have? And, you know, getting to know this person as an individual that they are and not just, you know, a buyer, so that we can come up with something perfect for them. I mean, that's just like the best bit.
Yeah.
You know, making it that human connection.
Yes. I like that. And is this something you do full time, or do you have a job outside of selling on Etsy?
I'm very desperately trying not to have a full-time job. So, but I'm going through all my savings at a very rapid pace. So I might have to step out there and try and find something to keep me going. But I'm trying to be stubborn and be like, I'm an artist. This is what I love doing. I want to make a living from it. But we'll see how it goes. Fingers crossed.
So then, in addition to Etsy, do you do live shows like craft fairs or vendor shows where you're able to sell your designs in person?
I want to. The truth is, I don't quite know what to angle to date, because I don't sell ready-made per se. You know, I can't do one in every shoe size because it's very personal.
That's true.
It's quite hard to work out. I suppose I could exhibit my stuff at a fair and then take orders. But it's, you know, I think when people go to these fairs, they also want to be able to see something they love and buy it. And that's tricky. So I'm kind of trying to work that out, that maybe I'll do my jackets and my bags and my tables and maybe possibly sell those. But I don't think the sneakers are conducive.
Right. Yes. And I think because the creative process for your products is really hands-on and is more collaborative than you coming up with the design and then offering that design and someone either likes it or doesn't. I think that's where what you do on Etsy is kind of different from what most others do, because it truly is unique to each item that you sell, because it involves the buyer's own what's the word, what they want.
Well, their creativity and their imagination goes into it. But that in itself, I love the fact that what I do is very original and one of a kind, because that's what I thrive on. But at the same time, it's very difficult because I don't have competitors I can compare to or that I can learn from. You know, I've kind of, the story of my life, I have a niche thing that I'm doing, which means I'm kind of in the dark. I'm in the middle of setting up, I've got a temporary website, but at the moment I'm developing this amazing website whereby parents can go on and there's lots of options. So they choose the trimmings and the beads and the trinkets, so they customize a pair of Converse for their kids.
Yes.
So I stitch it, but they choose what goes on there.
Okay. You know what that just reminded me of? And I don't remember the name of the lady, but there's this lady who started to customize Crocs. Are you familiar with that story?
Yes, vaguely. I think I've heard something about it.
Yeah, so kind of similar to what you're describing. She started to customize Crocs for, I think they were primarily for kids initially, and what she would do was offer different types of I don't know what they call them, like studs or beads or um trinkets types of things that could go onto the studs, so you could onto the Crocs, so
Yeah.
you could go to a website and then pick out what you wanted on your Crocs, and then they would get put on the Crocs that you buy. So it was kind of custom, and it sounds to me something like what you're thinking along the lines of doing. And I'm sorry I don't have the information, but I will look it up so I can include it in the show notes for this episode, so anyone who is thinking along similar lines can maybe see the model that lady used. And I don't even know her name, but I know it was a mom somewhere who wanted to jazz up the Crocs that her kids were wearing, and so she started putting these studs and different designs on the Crocs through the holes on the Crocs.
Yeah. I've seen, when I was living in South Africa, they were very popular. So if
Yes.
she was the one that started that off, then I'm sure she's doing pretty well by now.
Oh yes, yeah. It's now a big. I don't even know if she owns the company anymore. She might have sold it, but this was a mom somewhere who just started this, and so I will dig into the story of that, and then share it in the show notes for this episode, so that folks can see what she did and get some ideas.
Yeah.
So, what does your typical day look like, from when you wake up, and how do you incorporate what you're doing on Etsy and trying to grow your business into your day-to-day activities?
Well, first thing I do in the morning, which is my favorite thing to do every day, is take my dogs for an hour's walk.
Nice.
I have 2 French bulldogs who are my best friends, and we go for a walk every day in the morning, which is when it's the perfect time to listen to your podcasts. I've got no distractions. I'm in the forest. It's perfect. So I tend to always listen to your podcast when I go for a walk. It's also great because by the time I get back, I've got lots of stuff that I can research that I've learned from that particular podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Get straight into it.
Oh, good.
As soon as I come back, I'm basically, there's so many things when you're a one-man show that you've got to do. And I know that it's recommended you sort of have a timetable where you do 2 hours this, 2 hours this.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I prefer, if I feel like I want to be doing some customizing, then that's what I'm going to do. If I feel like I need to be pushing more on social media, I kind of follow that wherever my heart wants to be doing, then that's what I should be doing for that particular time. Okay. So yeah, I jump around all over the place pretty much.
Do you give yourself timelines so that you don't spend more time doing one thing and end up neglecting other things?
I think I'm a perfectionist by nature, so that would never happen.
Okay.
I write lists, and the lists are always out. So,
yes.
When I'm doing something, it's always at the back of my mind. Okay, I still have to do this, and I still have to do this. So, I'll, as much as I'm enjoying customizing a particular pair of shoes, if I know that there's correspondence that I have to make with the guy that's designing my website, then, I have the discipline to say, okay, I'm loving doing these shoes. I'm going to put them down for half an hour. I'm going to do this, and I can get back to them again.
Yeah. I know for me, there's some things like same as you that I really enjoy doing. And sometimes I also have to put my foot down on myself and say, I need to focus on the things that I don't necessarily enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Because they just need to get done. Yeah. Yeah. And when you're, like you said, a one person show, it sometimes is harder to be firm with yourself because, you're the decision maker. If you decide that you're going to put something off till tomorrow, even though you really should do it today, sometimes there isn't that accountability to say no. You might not want to do it right now, but it needs to get done now.
Yeah. And also, now, if you've got a 9 to 5 job and you're working for somebody, you know that at 5 o'clock, okay, well, I haven't done that, but I'm getting paid for today's work, and then I can come in tomorrow. But, when it's your baby, it's like, well, if I haven't done that, then I'm going to be up till 10 or 11 o'clock till I have
Yeah,
done it, because the only person that's going to suffer as a consequence is me.
is you, right. Now, Saskia, what are some of the things that, as a relatively new seller, and I say that because
It's true.
It's true, right?
Yeah.
What are some of the things you found have been the hardest to learn or have had the steepest learning curves for you?
Hands down, it's marketing and
Mm-hmm.
just getting my stuff seen.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up, an Etsy store, it's time consuming, it's very intricate, but it's very straightforward. But also, I'm of an older generation. Nowadays, I'm in my 40s, and the younger generations are so up with social media. I mean, this whole Snapchat thing just goes straight over my head. um, and I'm just trying to keep up, and I get quite overwhelmed by, you know, the Pinterest ads or the promoted listings on Etsy or the
Yes.
Facebook ads, and then also what to post on Instagram to try and get the followers, and what to post on Twitter. I mean, Twitter to me I don't really get it. It's like one sentence, and don't get Twitter at all, but I feel like I need to be doing it.
Yeah.
So I think the social media side, I wish I had some social marketing company that could just sort of take that from me and just do it for me, and it was one less thing to worry about.
Oh, you might regret saying that, because there are companies that do that, where they take over your social media. But before doing that, and this is just a me thing, I would always recommend that if you are going to get on any social media platform, you first get on there manually, doing things yourself to get a feel for the platform, for what works and what doesn't work before you start to automate it. It's easy to automate, but then sometimes I find that when you use automation, it's not quite as effective because you haven't gotten a good grasp of what really works on what platform and what doesn't.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be comfortable automating because I'm very big on authenticity, and I feel
Mhm.
like I need that human connection. So to me, it's like I'm bearing my soul on Instagram. I'm telling people who I am and who my product is and who my brand is, and what I stand for. And it feels like I'm not really connecting with my
Mhm.
customer if it's all sort of pre-planned or I've given it over to somebody else.
Mhm.
I just wish there was, like, I don't know, I wish I'd done my degree in it. I mean, there's that much information. You
Yes,
could
there
probably
is.
sit 2 years and get, a degree in social and knowing how to use social media.
Yes, yeah, there is that much information. But the thing
Yeah.
is, as soon as the way I think about it, as soon as you get that diploma, it's obsolete because they're constantly
Completely.
changing algorithms. They're constantly changing, what works and what doesn't and how things happen. So it's
Yeah.
probably just as well. Now,
Yeah.
regarding resources, what have you found to be most helpful when you get stuck on things like with marketing or even just selling on Etsy? Where do you go for resources to help you figure out what you need to do and how?
I find the Etsy handbook is it's kind of halfway helpful. So,
Only halfway helpful?
well, I find it gives me broader information,
Mm,
which I need. But
mm-hmm,
then once I've got that broader information, I sort of want to get a bit more detailed and intricate. From there, I usually sort of Google, find blogs. I've
mm-hmm.
joined. Jenny has this the Etsy Academy.
Jenny
I don't know if
Waldrop?
you're. Yeah,
Yes. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's Jenny Waldrop, and she runs the Etsy shop Fuzzy and Birch.
she's a lovely. I mean, I've
Yeah.
just joined up with her, and I just, I just have so much admiration for people like her and people like yourself that, no matter how well you're doing, you still manage to have this connection with people individually. They're not just, oh, another seller, you know?
Right.
she's like you. She makes you feel like you're being heard, and that you are, your shop is very individual and special in itself. And she's been very helpful, and her tips I find are very helpful.
Okay. And that's what's it? It's called the Etsy Academy. I remember because we talked about this on the podcast. And I know she offers different programs.
Yeah, she does. There's a basic one that basically you have a forum, so it's lovely. It's a closed community of other sellers, and everyone's really supportive of each other,
Mm-hmm.
which in this day and age I find very special, because you sometimes get a bit downhearted that everyone's trying to sort of be a success and they'll trample on anyone trying to get there.
Yeah.
And yet there are these beautiful communities of people that aren't like that feel like in this day and age, we need to come together and do things and work together.
Yes.
Because if you do for somebody else, then that will come back to you.
Yes.
And I feel that with the Etsy Academy. I feel like everyone's got each other's back.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Because I know Jenny has put in a lot of time and effort into that. And for anyone who doesn't know, I will link to Jenny's website. She offers a free 7-day Etsy makeover challenge, which, if you're not sold on her yet, you can go through the challenge, and that will give you a good idea of the kind of information and resources that she can provide for you or help you with. And then you can decide whether or not to join. Now with Jenny, Saskia, did you do her the makeover first before you joined, or what made you decide to actually commit to joining the her Etsy Academy?
I think I haven't done the makeover.
Okay.
To be honest, I've got a lot of faith in how I've set up my shop.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not too worried about that.
Okay.
It's just the topics, like I said, the topics that she deals with. For instance, if you want to know what promoted listings is on Etsy, and you look in the handbook, and it explains step by step, but they're very broad. Then you can, Jenny will have an article or something that's just a lot more detailed.
Yeah.
Not taking for granted that you immediately understand all this stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to know. And I'm glad to hear from someone who's on the inside, because it always helps to talk to someone who's on the inside, and has used the resources. So again, like I said, I will link to Jenny's website. You can go and listen to my conversation with her. I don't remember what the episode number was, but I will put that episode number in the show notes. Hear my conversation with Jenny, and then feel free to reach out to her and connect with her. She's been very successful.
What got me to her was your podcast, actually. That's why I.
Oh, that's how you heard about her?
Yes.
Fantastic. Oh, that's really good.
Your podcast works.
Oh, great. So regarding, you brought up the Etsy seller handbook and how sometimes you just want a little bit more. Have you found that I know you said they talk about things kind of in broad terms, and then you sometimes end up wanting more. Have you found that it does provide you with just about, at least in broad terms, enough information about everything that you would need to know on Etsy? Or do you think that as a resource is lacking in some things that a new seller would need to know?
No, I don't think it could be any more. I mean, it's got everything. It's brilliant. I do think it's brilliant. I think my problem is in a lot of ways, I don't fit into the box of an average Etsy seller. What I'm doing is just a little bit different. So sometimes it's harder for me. The information isn't quite apt for me, but
right.
Generally, if you're selling jewelry or, I just think this, I mean, I don't know what I would have done without the handbook. It's like a Bible. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
It's a Bible for crafts and artists who are trying to set up.
And thankfully, I don't know if you saw it before, maybe a year or two ago. I think it was sometime last year or maybe the year before. They actually reorganized it so that it's easier to find information, whereas before it was kind of hard to navigate, but now everything is categorized. So say you want to learn about shipping, there's a shipping category. You can go directly to that and see what
Yeah,
information there
sometimes
is.
it's intimidating how much information there is. You put in shipping and then it's like, which one do I read? There's so many.
Yes, yes. And I'm going to throw this in here because I'm going crazy almost not saying anything about it, but I'm working on a project which by the time this airs will be live. And basically I summarize the information in the Etsy seller handbook so people can just listen and then follow along. So if you've ever felt intimidated looking at the Etsy seller handbook and you didn't know quite where to start, I'm hoping this resource will be helpful for people who feel that way and who just want something structured and organized. And it's not information necessarily that I'm infusing. It's just from the handbook. So it's like, okay, here's this long article about how to get set up for international shipping. Maybe you didn't know it was there, but now you can listen to step by step what it says in there and how to set it up in your shop. So
Exactly what I was complaining about. Basically, now you're offering. I mean, that sounds like heaven.
yeah. Okay, so back to you, Jenny. So let's talk about your I'm sorry, not Jenny, Saskia. Oh,
That's all right.
sorry.
We talked about Jenny a lot. That's
Because we've been
okay.
talking about Jenny.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the website you're working on. Now, it's not always easy running an e-commerce website and building one. I know you mentioned that you've outsourced the building of it to someone else. But what are your plans for that website? Is it primarily going to just be e-commerce, or are you going to also use it as a blogging platform to draw in organic search traffic?
I'm still sort of learning as I go along. I would have done it myself, but because it's a very intricate website whereby people interact and literally customize a shoe for themselves, I needed somebody professional.
Yes.
I do want to blog on there. I struggle with the blogging side of things because it's a brand, you're selling your products, and then I am to a certain extent my brand, but I don't know how much of me should be expressed in a blog, if that makes sense. I don't know where the sort of balance is between business and who you are as a person. I don't know if that's making any sense. So I want to do a blog, but I, as a person, I'm a little bit on the crazy, eccentric kind of side. I'm an artist. I mean, it comes with the territory.
Yeah. But Saskia, here's the thing. People connect with people. And this is just my opinion. I think because of the level of customization of the work that you do, people are going to want to connect with you as the designer, you as the creator, you as the artist, and know that they're not necessarily just filling out a form on a commercial website where their input isn't really necessarily as going to be viewed as importantly as if they knew that there was an individual actually creating it. And so I think the more of you that you infuse into your brand, the more people can identify with who you are. And people who will connect with you will connect with you. Maybe not everybody will connect with you. And actually, I take that back. Not everybody will connect with you, but there is an audience that will. And those people will stick when they find you because they'll find that connection and that similarity. They'll find that style that appeals to them, but there's no way they would know that if they didn't get a good sense of who you are.
That's a really great thing to say. Thank you for saying that. That's definitely something I'm going to take away with me, actually. You're absolutely 100% right. And I couldn't bear the thought that they think it's very sort of, disconnected and businesslike, because that goes against what I do and everything about me. So Yeah, I think there's also that fear that people won't like you. I think that's a lot to do with the blog.
Oh,
Like,
I know that fear.
yeah, I think we all have that one to a certain extent. But I think to myself, well, I survived cancer. I have to hold on to that courage and believe
Yes.
in myself. I think, I think that's a big thing with Etsy, believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, also what most of us are doing on Etsy is we're bearing our souls. We're trying to sell things that we make because we love making them.
Yeah.
So these things are really, they come from inside of us, and it makes us very vulnerable to
Y-
put ourselves out there and people saying, oh, I don't like it, or I don't like you. I mean,
yes.
yeah, it's
Yeah, you're
scary.
right. That's the difference between selling what you make and just sourcing from a manufacturer and reselling, is that there's an element of, if nobody buys what you're selling, of you feeling that taking that rejection personally because you made it.
Yeah, yeah,
You've infused your personality and your
your
creativity into
heart,
that, and if that gets rejected, in a way you feel like you're getting rejected. So
completely,
yes.
completely. Yeah.
Now, do you plan to ship internationally, or do you want to keep what you're doing local?
No, from the very beginning, I've wanted to do internationally.
Okay. All right. That's good, because I know some sellers, especially in the beginning, shy away from making international sales because it can seem intimidating
I
to. Mhm,
I hear that a lot. I've heard on your podcast,
mhm,
that people get quite fearful of the whole international shipping. I
yeah.
have to say, what I did was I chose a quiet time of the day to go to my local post office,
Yeah.
and I talked to them. I've never done this before, so I went there with an average box with a pair of sneakers, and I said, right, I'm setting up a shop on Etsy. I need to know how much it's going to cost to send this box to Europe, America, wherever.
Nice.
And within, I was there for like 20 minutes, and I had all the information I needed, and it was really straightforward and easy.
Wow. That's, and I wish everyone would do that. But that's really forward thinking, because you've probably heard from other sellers that when they do decide to ship internationally, that first international sale is a learning experience, and most people lose out on that sale because they don't properly plan for what the shipping expenses will be to send an item to another country. And I was just recently reading one of the Etsy Seller Handbook articles about international shipping, and exactly what you did is exactly what they recommended. And it was, when I read it, I thought that is so, old school, but it's very common sense. They said, walk into a post office, use the scale, or ask them to, package everything like you would, like you're going to send it to a buyer, and then just get the cost directly from your post office. Then that way there's no question, there's no doubt, there's no room for error.
Yeah,
So
it's easy. It really
yeah.
is straightforward. I
Yeah.
think it's all about, also being honest about the fact that you don't know a lot, you know, not
Yeah.
being afraid, also to the buyer, you write them a note and go, oh, I'm so excited. Yours is my first international sale.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to try my best to get everything right. Please bear with me. Like, just be open and honest, that human connection again. It's saying to the person at the post office, I don't really know what I'm doing. Could you spare 10 minutes
Yeah.
to try and talk
Yeah.
it through with me? Take a pad and pen, write it all down. You know, it's the easiest thing in the world, because sometimes going online and going through all these articles can sometimes get you even more confused.
Yes, I agree. Now, Saskia, in your opinion, what to you would or how would you define being a success on Etsy? And not in general terms, but for you, what would it take for you, or what point do you think you would get to and be able to say to yourself that you feel that you have been a success on Etsy?
Well, it's definitely not so much about, having orders of 30 pairs of shoes to customize a week.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be that I have orders from all places in the world, that there's somebody in Japan that wants me to do a pair of shoes for them. And then there's somebody in Belgium and there's somebody in Mexico.
Yeah.
I think just that people want to wear my shoes, that people understand my concept.
Yeah.
I definitely need the sales. I do. I'm desperate for them.
Oh, absolutely. But I think, like you said, I think success is defined differently for different people. And in order to at least feel that it's worth what you're doing right now, what I hear you saying is that you knowing that people across the world want the designs that you make would make you feel that.
And also when somebody likes one of my items, I love that. That's somebody in the world saying, I think what you're doing is really cool. And that gives me affirmation. I love that.
Yes, absolutely.
Unfortunately, one thing I find though is with the tags and this, SEO, because what, you put in the tag what it is, customized sneaker, Converse, high top, whatever. And I think because what I'm doing is quite rare and hasn't been done before, I'd like, how do people come about finding it if they're not per se looking for it, but they want something different and new?
So you're talking about keyword research and what people now. How often do you look at your shop stats?
Often, but right now not a lot is happening because I'm not getting the visibility.
Okay.
I get a lot of people on Instagram liking the photos, but on Etsy per se, I'm not, because unless somebody's typing in customized sneaker, but then, at the same time, if for example, you want to buy something very original for your boyfriend for Valentine's Day or his birthday, you're not going to know that would be a very cool present. You're not going to know to type in customized, sneaker. Yes. But it would be a brilliant and original gift to give. Right.
And so part of that, and this was, again, I feel like I've been reading the Etsy Seller Handbook a lot lately, was one of the articles I was reading was talking about using your keywords in such a way that you not only show up in Etsy search, and the keywords you use really would have to be things that people are already looking for. And so even though they might not necessarily be looking for customized sneakers, they might be looking for other things that maybe your customized sneakers would be a good result for them to see, even though that's not necessarily what they typed in. For instance, you said gift for boyfriend. That's a perfectly good tag to use. One of the things they do recommend is including tags for if what you're selling can be a giftable item, for searches for people who aren't necessarily looking for a particular item, but they're shopping for a particular person or a particular reason. So maybe they're looking for Christmas presents or anniversary presents or boyfriend gifts or girlfriend gifts. And those are the types of keywords you should also be including in your tags, not just things that describe what you're selling, but things that could describe what someone is looking for that your items match. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's very helpful. That totally makes sense, because basically my tags are really just describing the item, but I definitely think I'm going to take your advice and definitely incorporate some more of those. For instance, unusual gift, or original gift for boyfriend, something along those lines.
Or sports gift, or I'm not coming up with any right off the top of my head, or gifts for teens, because teens like blinged out shoes, things like that. So that was one thing that they said. The other thing was also to consider, because Google indexes Etsy shops. And so the keywords and the phrases and terms that you use within your item's description get picked up by Google, so that if you use terms and keywords and phrases that somebody might be searching for on Google, your shop will also show up in the Google results because you match a search that someone who isn't even on Etsy but is searching for something that you sell will see as well. And so you also have to think about using keywords in such a way that you not only are showing up in Etsy search, but that you're also showing up in, and I say Google, but really I mean any search engine, Bing, Yahoo, wherever people do their searches, because those engines also index Etsy shops, not just Etsy, the website, but your individual shops. And so that's another good way to get found is make sure you're using the space in your description, because that's where the most text is, to include keywords that people might be searching for. And so you might say something like, are you looking for teens for a gift for a teen, or is your boyfriend's birthday coming up and you need a special gift that he wouldn't find at, whatever shop or what have you, things like that, so that somebody who's searching for boyfriend birthday gifts on Google gets your shop as a result that they're offered because you've said something about boyfriend birthday gifts. Does that make sense too?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've actually just today, my next test was one of the doing a Google ad.
Oh.
Today I've tested that, and I tested an Etsy promoted listing.
Okay. So you just started those today?
Yeah, because I think I'm just not born to do these ad things. I tried Pinterest, and the photo got a lot of likes, but it didn't translate to getting people to my shop.
Yeah.
The same happened with Facebook as well. It didn't translate to people actually getting to my shop.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay. Well, I would love to know how the Google ads and promoted listings work for you. So if you wouldn't mind letting me know, I'm really curious.
Absolutely. I'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Now, with regard to Pinterest and Facebook, it's interesting that you mentioned those, because Pinterest is a mystery to me as well. And Facebook, I mean, I started off just using Facebook for personal stuff, and even though it is a good marketing tool, I don't know how to use it that well. But I did recently subscribe to 2 courses that teach you how to, because I figured it's about time I learn. And so this year I'm going to try and master Pinterest at the very least. I just started a course, so I don't yet have any feedback on it. But once I go all the way through and I figure out, if it was helpful and if it worked for me, I'll report back here on the podcast. Because I think, like many people, I've been flailing around on every social media channel, and, I know a little bit about all of them, but not everything about any of them. And so this year I said, I'm going to pick Pinterest because it's the one I know the least about, and learn it. And then I will share that with you.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. These courses sound very exciting, so I would love to know more about them.
Okay. Now, Saskia, if there's one thing that you could change, or a feature that doesn't currently exist on the Etsy platform that you could ask for, what would it be? And on the flip side, what's your favorite feature about Etsy?
I would definitely change that whole year thing, and the blatant,
Yes.
The first thing they see is your year and how many sales. It's like pressure immediately.
Yeah.
That I'm not a big fan of at all.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that Etsy itself is genius. It makes everything straightforward. So, I mean, if you're somebody like me who's an artist, who's not particularly technologically minded, they do make it very easy for you to just get a shop online. And I think that's pretty impressive, because a lot of people that are creative aren't necessarily, this stuff is not second nature to them. And I think it's brilliant. It's very straightforward. It's very easy to use. I mean, look, I'm still learning. I think that's the thing. Every day you're learning more
Mm-hmm.
and more, and especially if you're at the beginning like I am.
Yeah.
There's still like 3/4 of stuff I don't know
Yeah.
what's going on. I mean, I say I did a promoted listing. I think I did. I think I pushed all the right buttons. I'm not sure. We'll see.
That's funny. We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
find out, I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the good thing about promoted listings, I'll tell you, is that you get a lot of keyword information once you run those, and Etsy will give you more information about keywords and what terms people are using to find your shop, and you can use that information to tweak your tags. So that's one good thing, and that even just that makes it worth at least trying the promoted listings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so Saskia, you're still a relatively new seller. I want you to, if you can, talk to that person who also is in the very beginning stages of selling on Etsy or hasn't yet opened up their shop and is thinking about doing it. What would you tell that person?
I think if it's somebody in the same place as me that's just started, I think believing in yourself and keeping the faith, because it doesn't happen overnight as much as we would love it to. And it's about having patience and not giving up, because there are days when I just think, obviously my stuff's not good enough and, it's not going to happen for me and I just want to shut the shop and quit. But then, when I look at the things that I make, I just think, actually, you know what? My stuff's brilliant and it's taking time.
Yeah.
But I've just got to not give up and keep going and believe in myself and keep listening to podcasts and joining groups on Facebook and finding forums and blogs and just, keep teaching yourself.
Yeah.
And, you've just got to hope one day, and I still believe and hope one day that something's going to shift and then things will start changing.
I do too. And I'm glad that I'm talking to you at the very beginning because I want to follow up with you in a year. Can we do this again a year from now and just see all what has happened? Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm like front page of fashion magazines and
yes, exactly. Exactly. I'll be begging you to pencil me in.
Yeah, I'll fit you in. I promise I'll fit you in. I'll remember you.
Now, Saskia, what's the best way people can reach you if they want to get in touch?
Well, my email is saskia@naturalborncustoms.com. Okay. Otherwise, through Etsy, through the conversations on Etsy as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and I love communicating with people. I love chatting to people. I'm also very open and honest. So, anything anybody wants to talk about, I'm always happy to.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing that. So I will have Saskia's contact information on the show notes as well. And what was the other thing I was supposed to share? Oh, the lady with the Crocs. So if anyone wants to read about that. Saskia, thank you so much for taking the time out to be on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming to share what you're doing on Etsy, especially at the beginning. And I was telling Saskia this offline, but one of the things I like is that I know that there's someone out who's listening to this conversation who is also a new seller, who might be feeling overwhelmed about what to do and just how to grow on Etsy, and wants to hear from someone who's also in the beginning stages and also figuring things out. And so for that reason, I appreciate you coming and sharing what's going on and what your plans are for the future. And I really do look forward to talking with you again a year from now, just to see what you learned over this coming year and what changed, what worked, what didn't work, and check in to see where you are. So I look forward to that.
Thank you, Gemma, and thank you for giving people like me an opportunity, that you don't just choose successful sellers who have been doing it for years. And, because sometimes I find those people an inspiration, but it's intimidating. So it's nice to be able to just be one of those people that's just trying to get to where these other people are, and that you're as interested in us newbies as, the old crew, the successful crew. So thank you for that. Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. I appreciate you all. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.